Good morning, church. It is good to be with you on this Sunday morning, both those of you who have braved the sultriness of our beloved sanctuary and those of you who perhaps are watching from a cooler and drier location. My name is Laurie Bilby, and I have been called up from the reserves of former worship associates to be with you today. The WAs serve South Church weekly alongside with our settled minister, the Reverend Ellen Quadgrass, and our Director of Lifespan Ministry, Kirsten Hunter. We are so pleased to welcome our own member, Jesse Lohr, this morning to the pulpit, and can't wait to hear what he has to say. We extend our thanks to our pianist, Susan Adams, and to all of the many other people whose hearts and hands make these gatherings possible. I would like to begin our service by acknowledging the Wabanaki and Pennacook people on whose homeland this sanctuary was built. They did not cede this land, which was taken by the colonizers. I hold deep respect for those who stewarded this land for thousands of years before European arrival. As some of us learned from the Lakotas in South Dakota earlier this year, Mitakuye Oyasin, we are all related. Therefore, we must learn from and care for each other. We need our local indigenous people. We need their wisdom. And we need to support them as they continue to strive for justice and self-determination. Today, our Time for All Ages is brought to us by Jesse Lohr, and after the story, all of the children are invited to head outside with Jen for a little religious education. We are offering social hour on the portico. There are cool drinks out there. You might have noticed there's also shade and a slight breeze. If you need a listening device, a large print hymnal, or coloring materials, you can access those in the back of the sanctuary or ask an usher for a hand. And this is a great time to silence your electronic devices. There are a number of things going on in the church, both this week and in the weeks ahead. They are printed out in your order of service, but we're going to let you read them and not read them to you.
For our invocation this morning, I'd like you to join me in an Om. Om is the primal vibration of the universe in Buddhist meditation. And I'm going to invite you to do a 3-breath Om. So take a deep breath in and let out an Om. And then take a breath in, Om, and a third breath and a third Om. And as you do it, try to listen to the people around you and connect with the vibration that we create together in this room.
We light our chalice this morning with these anonymous words, which are conveniently listed at number 434 in the gray hymnal. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Please stand if you're able and join me in reciting the mission statement printed in the order of service. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people and inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community. You may be seated. Some of you saw me right in the same spot yesterday morning as we gathered together to mourn the loss and celebrate the life of our dear Jane Kavanaugh. And although it's not the first time I've lost someone I love, and if I'm lucky, it won't be the last time, I'm really sad. And this changes how I move through the world. It changes how I sleep, and it changes what I want to talk about, and it changes to whom I want to talk at all. It affects my already challenged patience, and it has an impact on my creative expression. Late last fall, I took a little leap in my art life, and I'm renting some studio space in Kittery. So all of my painting stuff is now not crammed into my home office. And the result is I actually paint, mat, and frame more. Because when I'm home, there are always a million other things that I really should be doing that are higher priority. In the studio, it's only about painting, or thinking about painting, or making a coffee while I'm thinking about painting. Anyway, I've not been down to the studio much since Jane died. Life gets in the way, and grief just slows me down. But when I have, what I've done when I've picked up the brush has surprised me. I went in one day thinking I'd play around with the shapes and colors of a peony blossom I'd taken a whole bunch of photographs of. I just came in really close and like, what would happen if I got all those pinks and waves on a page? What would that look like? What I ended up really doing actually were dyeing poppies, bright red, dripping, drooping, running into a dark gray background. Jane Kavanaugh loved poppies. It's not a good painting. It could be, though, and I might do it again intentionally. I might actually do the peony someday, too. What fascinates me in all of this is how that human spirit, our spark, our ability to transform one thing into another is both so fragile and so resilient, both exhausted and raring to go, both as familiar as our own skin and never really known. I so appreciate our being together in this moment to remember that we, the lucky living, do so in and with great sacred mystery. Our opening hymn is number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. We will sing that through twice.
Like to invite all the youth or kids or young at heart people to the front, to hear this story I've got today. It's called Poetry. It's by Shauna Lavoie Reynolds and illustrated by Shahrazad Maydani. The snow had melted, the buttercups were blooming, and Sylvia celebrated winter's end by writing a poem about spring. She walked with Shell to the park at the top of the hill and read it to a squirrel. Spring is here at last. I hope it doesn't end too fast. Like a bee, I'll sniff each flower and I'll enjoy each springy hour so much. The squirrel seemed grateful. Sylvia tied her poem to a birch tree and headed home, hoping that it didn't count as littering if it made the world more splendid. The next morning, Sylvia passed the birch on her way to school. From a distance, she saw her poem fluttering in the breeze. But when she got closer, she realized it wasn't her poem at all. I think spring is the best of the seasons for plenty of excellent reasons, like birdie parents building nests where all the baby birds can rest and play. Who do you think wrote that poem? Sylvia's heart did a somersault. She never imagined the tree might write back. In class, Sylvia daydreamed about her new leafy friend. "Sylvia, please pay attention," said Mrs. Oliver. "Yeah, Sylvia," whispered Walt, the boy sitting behind her. The classmates giggled, and Sylvia sank in her seat. After lunch, Miss Oliver taught the class about haiku. Sylvia struggled to contain her excitement in 17 syllables. This is the haiku that she wrote. "White birch on the hill speaks out loud through rustling leaves. Green, great green poetry." Miss Oliver gave Sylvia a gold star. And what did Walt do? He stuck out his tongue. Walt. When the bell rang, Sylvia ran straight to the poetry. She folded her haiku into a paper boat and pushed it halfway into the knothole. "So, what's your name?" Sylvia asked the tree, but the tree stood in silence. "Are you shy like me?" The tree nodded in the breeze. Sylvia understood. That night, Sylvia dreamed of rhymes falling like autumn leaves. She dreamed of cheerful songbirds greeting her in perfect rhythm. On Saturday morning, Sylvia rushed to the park with a heart full of hope. The knothole was empty, and she saw no notes on the branches. But the whisper of the wind in the leaves above her was like a poem. Sylvia looked up and saw fragments of sky peeking through the treetops. She spoke the words as they blossomed in her mind. "Sky so blue, grass so green, tree so tall in between, favorite friend in morning light and under moon glow late at night." Sylvia selected a twig from the ground and gripped it like a pencil. "By Sylvia," she wrote in the air. But that didn't seem right. "Love Sylvia," she waved her stick with a flourish, accidentally hitting a branch. A tightly folded ninja star fell to her feet. Sylvia couldn't unfold it fast enough. "I've wondered a while, can a tree and child be friends? Your words give me hope." Sylvia felt a spark in her heart. Good thing she brought sidewalk chalk. She scrawled in big blocky letters so the birch could see. "I never thought that I would see such lovely poems from a tree. I wish that I could climb and live among the words you love to give. But if I lived up in a tree, I sure would miss my family, especially Shell." Sylvia thought it was the greatest thing she had written in all her years. She wrapped her arms around the poetry. It was stronger, wiser, and kinder than the children at school. She knew she would always have a friend at the park. She didn't open her eyes until Shell barked. Walt was there, staring at the ninja star haiku sticking out of Sylvia's pocket. "That's not for you, that's for my tree," he said. Sylvia blinked. It was from the tree, just for me. Walt shook his head. Sylvia didn't understand. Had the tree she loved so much not given her a thing? Sylvia didn't want to cry. Not at the park. Walt didn't want her to cry either. "I'm sorry I was mean at school," he said. Sylvia smiled. "A friend of the tree is okay with me." She never could resist a good rhyme. Walt read Sylvia's chalk poem out loud. "You're a wonderful poet," he said. "You deserved that gold star. But who is Shell?" Sylvia pointed. "My best friend's name is Shell. I think he likes the way you smell." "I can tell," said Walt. The two poets giggled. "Can I borrow your chalk?" Walt composed a new poem next to Sylvia's. "If you want to share a poem with me, give it to the tall birch tree. Or if you need a friend for riding, playing with, or sit besiding, I'll be right here for you joyfully, right beneath the poetry." The new friends sat for a while side by side, backs against the birch. Sunlight and shadows danced through the leaves above them as they silently searched for the most marvelous words to describe it all. The end. And what I love about this poem is that these children, they find inspiration in nature, and then they're able to connect better with each other as a result. So I hope you find some connection to nature today and have fun together. And now we'll sing the kids downstairs.
At this point in our service, we offer an opportunity to express our gratitude, our support, and our generosity toward all of the good work and good people of South Church. One aspect of our giving practice here is that we choose to share our morning offering with various local groups doing valuable work in our larger community. And this month, we are pleased to be able to support Seacoast Family Promise, whom you can read about in your order of service. We try to make it easy. You can give through the Vanco app on your mobile phone, donate on our website, send a check to 73 Court Street, or even use the QR code in the order of service. You can also, of course, always drop your cash and other readily saleable valuables into the baskets the ushers will now be circulating. Your offerings will now be gratefully received.
give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
It has been another troubling week in America. Whatever you find yourself responding to with yesterday's assassination attempt on Donald Trump, I invite you to be with that as we enter into a spirit of meditation and/or prayer. Let your busy mind be quiet for just a moment as you feel your body supported by the pews or whatever you may be sitting on. Offer a moment of gratitude, perhaps, for the tree from which it came, for the many hands that went into its crafting. Feel the connection of those around you. Consider the miracle of all of our beating hearts, and be comforted by the love we share as we have a moment of quiet. Holy, divine Spirit of all life, we come into the presence of mystery with awe and with wonder. We come broken, we come whole, we come with our joy and our sorrow. We come as we are, knowing that just this act of coming together will help us heal, will help us grow, will nourish our souls for the work we are called to do in this world. May we be strengthened, lifted up, filled with all that we need. Amen. We'll take a few minutes now to acknowledge what we are carrying in our hearts. You can enjoy a little quiet respite right where you are sitting while Susan plays for us. But if you'd like to lift up a joy or concern, or if there's something you want to burn up or need to light a fire under, please feel free to come forward now and light a candle as the music plays.
My name is Jesse Lohr, and with my wife Melissa and my kids Ash and Jackson, we've been members of South Church for about 11 years now. And I was raised a Unitarian Universalist by my mom in the Manchester Church. And this is a story of my search for truth and meaning. There's an old jazz joke that goes something like this. When Dizzy Gillespie, the famous jazz trumpeter, you know, the one with the bell that pointed up to the sky, when he died, he went to heaven. And he got to the pearly gates, and St. Peter saw him and said, "Hey, Diz, so good to see you. Love your stuff, man. Hey, let me take you out. We've got some great jazz clubs here in heaven." So he led him through the gates, and they went downtown and walked into this foyer of this beautiful club, the best jazz club in heaven. It looked remarkably like Jimmy's Jazz and Blues Club in Portsmouth. And as they were walking up the stairs to the club, Dizzy heard the most amazing singing he had ever heard. Soulful yet bright, complex melodies layering over sweet harmonies with words that touched his soul. He raced up the last couple of steps to walk in and see a beautiful black woman he did not recognize singing the most beautiful song he had ever heard. "Pete," Dizzy exclaimed, "who is that singing?" And St. Peter said, "Oh, that's just God. She thinks she's Ella Fitzgerald." This joke always struck me as having Unitarian Universalist sensibilities, right? Only UUs would anthropomorphize God in such a way that she was jealous of the creative powers of human beings. My Uncle Steve told me that joke at Thanksgiving in my grandparents' house in Vermont when I was 12. While the rest of my mom's large family would play Risk or chat around the fireplace, me and my uncle would go upstairs and play our trumpets together. My Uncle Steve was an artist of all media, photography, sculpture, painting, music. He lived in New York City for many years, and he taught me the blues scales, licks from the jazz greats like John Coltrane and Miles Davis. And he taught me how to improvise. He taught me how to connect with my feelings, how to clear my mind, express the shape of my soul through free-form play on the horn. My Uncle Steve had lived a hard life. I didn't know this then. No one in the family did, but Steve was trans and had lived a harder life than we could have imagined. So much of his soulfulness came from the deep pain of living in the closet. He worked as a professional photographer during the day and then as a trans woman in the New York jazz and club scene in the 70s and 80s. We later learned that he suffered horribly, but his art, wild, raw, and powerful, was his release, his balm, the expression of his soul saying, "Here I am, here is who I am and what I have to bring to this world that made me, but will not accept me." I played trumpet a lot through the middle school and high school years, often walking into the woods behind my house to improvise alone, playing out the way I felt to the trees and the birds. Later, I learned guitar and bass, never getting very good at any of them, but learning enough to jam with friends. I remember taking my trumpet on my first trip to Star Island for the YRUU conference when I was 16. The island was filled with awesome, weird, creative, young Unitarian Universalists with more acoustic guitars, hand drums, and beautiful voices than I could count. We jammed on the porch after nearly every meal, connecting and communicating wordlessly, dancing to the music we made as the sun set over Gosport Harbor. It was that first year at Star Island that I had my first mystical experience, my first direct experience of the divine. At the end of the week, after the most incredible days of connecting in deep conversation, play, and worship with these people who would become my lifelong friends, I got caught in a thunderstorm out on the front lawn. As the rain poured down on me, soaking me from head to toe, the oneness of the universe rose up through the grass into my feet, surged through my legs into my chest, and erupted through the top of my head in a nearly blinding, inexplicable ecstasy. I cried at the unsurpassed beauty of it all. I felt direct connection to all things. I felt one with God and the universe, and for days after, I still felt that glow. So much of my search for truth and meaning in the world since then has been guided by that experience. At the core of my personal theology is mysticism, the belief that we can know God or the divine light of the universe through direct connection. That direct connection can be achieved through contemplative practice, like meditation, or ecstatic practice, like dance, and it transcends rational understanding. In college, I studied the mystics from Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, Hindu, and Muslim traditions. My favorites were the Islamic mystics, first among them the Sufi poet Rumi, the dervish who whirled in ecstatic dance and who wrote beautiful poetry, some of which is in our Unitarian hymnal. My favorite Rumi poem is called "Put This Design in Your Carpet." He says, "Spiritual experience is a modest person who looks lovingly at only one other soul. It's a great river where ducks live happily and crows drown. The visible bowl of form contains food that is both nourishing and a source of heartburn. There is an unseen presence we honor that gives the gifts. Your water, we're the millstone. Your wind, we are dust blown up into shapes. Your spirit, we are the opening and closing of hands. You're the clarity, we're this language that tries to say it. Your joy, we are all the different kinds of laughing. Any movement or sound is a profession of faith, as the millstone grinding is explaining how it believes in the river. No metaphor can say this, but I can't stop pointing to the beauty. Every moment and place says, put this design in your carpet. Like the shepherd in Book 2 who wanted to pick the lice off God's robe and stitch up God's shoes, I want to be in such a passionate adoration that my tent gets pitched against the sky. Let the beloved come and sit like a guard dog in front of the tent. When the ocean surges, don't just let me hear it. Let it splash inside my chest. We all yearn to feel connected. This is perhaps the deepest desire shared by all people, consciously or unconsciously. We want to feel connected to ourselves, to each other, to this beautiful world of which we are both a part and too often seemingly apart from. The mystics believe that we can make the direct connection through spiritual practice and experience union with the divine light of love in the universe. And so often, the outpouring from this divine connection is creativity. Rumi wrote poetry, the Buddhists made mandalas, Christian monks and nuns chant. These practices both aid mystical connection and express the inexpressible. No metaphor can say this, but I can't stop pointing to the beauty. I am by no means a monk, yogi, or dervish, but I have a meditation practice that for many years has helped me stay connected. I've connected with my family in the past through musical performance, and I'm known to be seen at Fish concerts dancing ecstatically, or at jazz shows getting lost in the improvised jams. I seek out places where the ocean surges that I may open my heart and let it splash in my chest. The brain science around meditation and spiritual experience is fascinating. In 2017, Richie Davidson and Daniel Goldman published a book called Altered Traits: Science Reveals How Meditation Changes the Mind, Brain, and Body. These two neuroscientists had met with the Dalai Lama, who challenged them to bring meditation practitioners into their lab and study what happened in their brains. What they found was pretty incredible. Under observation from an EEG machine during meditation, practiced meditators were able to turn off parts of their prefrontal cortex, the personality center of our brain, where we process moment-to-moment input, compare it to our past experiences, and then react. It is part of the brain that constructs our self, and it can be turned off by meditative practice. The result of turning off our prefrontal cortex, they found, was that we relax our connections to the stories that we tell about ourselves and the world. And most of these stories are about separation. I and me and we versus he and she and them. And when we turn down the volume on our separation, we open ourselves to the symphony of connection and oneness that is playing all around us, the unity of divine love. We can directly experience and become part of it. And where this becomes really interesting and really helpful is that it allows us to tell more creative stories about who we are in this world when we come out on the other side. When we emerge from meditative experience, we aren't so stuck to the narratives of strife and separation that we create each day through our personal struggles and cultural lenses. We aren't so different from each other, not so separate from our natural world, and we can more easily see our patterns of interconnection. We can be more creative in the path that we walk. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the 19th century transcendentalist Unitarian minister, drew on the mystic traditions when he wrote The Oversoul. He said, "This deep power in which we exist and whose beatitude is accessible to us is not only self-sufficing and perfect in every hour, but the act of seeing and the thing seen, the seer and the spectacle. The subject and the object are one. We see the world piece by piece as the sun, the moon, the animal, the tree, but the whole of which these are shining parts is the soul. Only by the vision of that wisdom can the horoscope of the ages be read, and by falling back on our better thoughts, by yielding to the spirit of prophecy which is innate in every person, can we know what is said." 19th century, so let me break it down a little bit. When we see that all is one, when we can make this connection to the oneness of the universe, we can understand what Emerson calls the zodiac of the ages. I think what Emerson is talking about is that experience of creativity where it seems that what is flowing out of us is not from within us, but flowing through us. Have you ever felt that? Making music or painting or carving wood or gardening or writing, feeling like it was not your small self making something, but rather the light of the world was refracting through the prism that is your earthly form, flowing through you, scattering rainbows across the room. No metaphor can say this, but I can't stop pointing to the beauty. After losing my job in the fall of 2022, the stories I had told myself of who I was no longer had value. I was no longer a well-paid mid-career executive on the fast track to the C-suite with a healthy retirement account. No, that had all been washed away. I had to write a new story, and it had been one that I had been writing in my soul for months. I'd become deeply connected to the challenge of climate change as I finished my master's degree in sustainability, and the spirit of prophecy rolled up in me. I was going to do something that I had never wanted to do, but now heard clearly the call. Start a business helping save the planet with awesome electric cars. It has been the most challenging thing I have ever had to do. I have faced incredible doubt and hardship for myself and for my family, but it has also kept me connected to the divine oneness of the universe in more ways than I could have expected. I meditate and pray more often than I ever have. I seek guidance from and connection with the wisdom of the horoscope of the ages and from the saints and sages that I have met along the way. And in these summer nights, I have gone to dance at shows, spinning ecstatically to connect with and swim in that great river where ducks live happily and crows drown. Connecting with the divine oneness of the universe has been the source of unbounded creativity in my life and in my soul. May we all get to glimpse the infinite, turn down the part of our minds that divides us and disconnects us from our true path. May we find ecstatic joy and sing and dance and love together in this world. And may we find the creativity to make our world better and more compassionate and more interconnected. The heaven we crave is upon us for all our days if we can just quiet our minds and feel it. Amen. And now we will sing number 108 in the gray hymnal. My life flows on in endless song.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I'll invite you to stand for the benediction and hold your hands out and feel the oneness within this space today. Divine light and source of all power and all creativity in the universe, we give thanks. We give thanks for these long days of summer when the power of the creative force is strong in all things. May we feel that power in all nature's forms. May we see it in each other, and may we find it in ourselves. In our finite forms, may the infinite flow through us, and may the rainbows of love that we scatter be beautiful. Blessed be.